of a negotiated settlement that met America's national security needs, and that what Iranian regime officials declared that instead of agreeing to a deal, they would open a new enrichment facility. The attack became necessary to counter the, quote, apocalyptic threat posed by an Iranian nuclear arsenal. Congressman Troy Nehls and Randy Weber echoed that sentiment, stressing Iran cannot and should not have a nuclear weapon. Congressman Wesley Hunt called it a mission of military precision that showed the U.S. will not tolerate threats to our national security or to global stability. And Houston area Congressman Dan Crenshaw sought to downplay concerns that the move would draw America into a new war by asking, you think this means World War III? You're wrong. You think it means American soldiers deploying to Iran? You're wrong. You think it means long-term stability in the Middle East and a safer future for Americans? You're right. While those and other Republicans supported the administration's action, Democrats in Congress expressed concern that the president did not seek congressional approval first. Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia expressed concern the U.S. could end up in another endless war in the Middle East, and if President Trump wants that, quote, he must do so with congressional approval. Congresswoman Lizzie Fletcher echoed that and went a step further, arguing the president's decision to order direct military action in Iran without authorization from Congress violates the Constitution. Congresswoman Fletcher joins us now. Congresswoman, good morning.
Good morning, Craig.
Why, in your view, does Saturday night's military action represent a violation of the U.S. Constitution?
Well, because the Constitution provides that Congress has the sole power to declare war under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11. That is clear. And what the president has done is actually what he swore he wouldn't do, which was involve the United States in a war in the Middle East. You heard the vice president on Sunday morning say that we are at war with Iran's nuclear program. And the president, there's no evidence that there was an imminent threat that needed to have a response prior to coming to Congress to get the requisite authorization. And as I said over the weekend, Craig, it continues a pattern in this administration and from the president of undermining the checks and balances in our system of government, our efforts to protect Americans at home and around the world, and to make sure that we are protecting our democratic system and our national security. And so the president needed to come to Congress.
While the power to declare war is in the hands of Congress, but we have for decades seen military action, missile and drone strikes and the like, by one administration after another that is not characterized as a declaration of war, but rather a limited military action, so not subject to congressional approval. Why, in your view, is that not what happened Saturday night?
Well, it is certainly true, Craig, that there are a couple of things that have happened over time. And one is that the president does have authorization when there is an imminent threat to take certain action and then report to Congress about that action. And it is also true that Congress has given broad powers in the past with an authorization for use of military force, specifically after 9/11. And presidents since that time have argued that the authorization for use of military force made it possible for them to take certain actions. And that's the part of it. It's President Bush, it's President Obama. I mean, we have seen that over the years. So that is certainly a true statement. But to see the Vice President of the United States on TV and say that we are at war, that is not something that the president and the administration can do without the authorization of Congress. And again, while I agree that we don't want a nuclear-armed Iran. Iran is a state sponsor of terrorism. It is a real threat. I don't mean to minimize that threat. And I think that it's important that we're having this conversation. Of course, part of the reason that Iran is growing its nuclear program is because President Trump removed the United States from the agreement with Iran back in his first term, where they had stopped enrichment of uranium. And you can see there are charts. There's all sorts of stuff in the news that I'm sure you've seen, just showing what has happened over the years. So there is an acceleration. There are concerns. I don't mean to minimize the threat. And I certainly hope that our American initiatives here are successful, because we need them to be as Americans. But the president has engaged in a consistent pattern of ignoring Congress, ignoring the courts, and undermining the very fundamentals of our democratic system that are there to protect us when it comes to things like going to war, to make sure that no President Trump or any other, doesn't behave in a way that is thoughtless, unilateral, or impulsive. And frankly, we have seen President Trump behaving that way many times already in the first 6 months of his administration.
You mentioned the word imminent a couple of times, and I gather you're probably referencing the War Powers Act, which requires the president to notify Congress within 48 hours of sending troops into an imminent conflict. It also limits how long that action can last without congressional authorization. Not everybody agrees on the constitutionality of that law, but is that enough control in your view, or would you like to see further limits set on what the president can do as commander-in-chief?
Well, certainly I think that the president should comply with the existing laws. And every single day we see this president failing or refusing to comply with the existing protections that are in place. And I think that, it's important to reiterate, this is not to minimize the threat. This is to emphasize the seriousness and the significance of what we are facing. People around the world are concerned, and we know that Iran works through proxies, works through terrorist activities, and this decision could accelerate the decision to build a nuclear weapon, which our intelligence community said just this March they were not building a weapon. Now, I don't discount the idea and the fact that they were enriching uranium at levels not needed for civilian use. We've seen the director of the IAEA over the weekend all over TV talking about the fact that they were enriching needlessly high levels of uranium without assigning sort of motive. They didn't have a weapon. They're in a position to make one. That's what our intelligence community said. So this is a real threat. And I also acknowledge that this was a moment where the situation has changed in many ways because of the current situation in the Middle East. But you heard some of my colleagues, or you read some of my colleagues in your opening talking about what this will mean. And the fact is, we can't know any of those things right now. Many presidents before have had a choice of whether to take this kind of action, and they have chosen not to because of the severe risks that it imposes, because of the long-term implications to destabilize the region and the world, and to put Americans all around the world in harm's way. We have 40,000 troops in the Middle East right now, but we have Americans all around the world who could be in danger. And that is why these decisions must be made deliberately and with the consent of the people's representatives in Congress. That is why the power to wage war is vested in the Congress. And that is the most serious decision that we can make, is whether to send our sons and daughters to war. And that cannot be made lightly.
Do you think this action can remain limited? In other words, could it be that after the strikes this weekend, that the U.S. can back off, that Israel, as it continues to bomb targets in Iran, even last night and this morning, that Israel could continue on its own, and that's a way for the U.S. to separate from this? Or are you concerned that no matter what may come next, we will, in fact, get dragged into a larger war?
Well, I think it's too soon to tell, Craig. And that's what all the experts have told us. We don't even have the damage assessment yet. There's a lot of information that's coming out. I certainly hope that this can be a successful strike that limits the enrichment capabilities and that sets the program back and that ends nuclear ambitions. I certainly hope that that is the outcome. We can't know that now, and the risk of entering another, as you said, I think also in the intro, another long-term protracted conflict, a war in Iran, is a deep concern for all of us. But let's hope that we have achieved these objectives and that the United States can engage in negotiations, which we have done before and which we had attempted to do again, and which the entire world would benefit from a peaceful, negotiated solution to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. But we also know that we're in an incredibly unstable time in the world, that there are alignments. You've already seen over the weekend reports of other countries offering aid. We have to be concerned about the threat from Russia and China. We have to be concerned about the threat from Iran as well. And so it's just too soon to know. I certainly hope that this can be limited and effective, right? Because it is true that this is a threat and that this is something we want to deal with. And prior presidents have negotiated this agreement with the international community, with inspectors going into these sites in Iran and making sure that they were not developing nuclear weapons. But certainly we have not had that same visibility into the program since the United States withdrew from that. And while the president has said over the last 2 months that he is demanding that they re-enter essentially the same agreement we already had that he pulled out of, it's critically important that we continue to try through diplomacy and negotiation to not escalate and not enter into a war that would put American troops on the ground in harm's way, that would threaten Americans around the world with the threat of terrorist activities that we know Iran has sponsored for decades. So it is a very dangerous time. It's a very delicate time. I do hope that because this action has already been taken, it will be successful and that we can achieve our goal of preventing Iran from wanting to become and becoming a nuclear arms country. At the same time, I remain deeply concerned that the president is amassing power, ignoring Congress, ignoring the courts, and just consolidating all of that power. And so I do think it's critically important that Congress gets briefed. I'm on my way back to Washington right now, which is why I'm on the phone with you and not in the studio. I'm going to go back. We're going to get briefed. We're going to hear the threat assessment. You know, it's too soon to know now. But what I know for sure from the beginning, day one of this administration, is that the president is overstepping his authority and ignoring the Constitution, and that puts every single American in danger.
We will bring you more of the Republican reaction to Saturday's bombing on Hello Houston today. Congressman Randy Weber will be on the show shortly after noon. Congresswoman Lizzie Fletcher is a Democrat representing the 7th District in Texas. Congresswoman Fletcher, thank you very much for the time.
Thanks, Craig. Good to be with you.
According to a Gas Buddy...
Oh man, that is the most hilarious thing I've ever heard from a crazy politician. I should say dysfunctional, my fault, dysfunctional politician. Very dysfunctional lady in politics. This ain't about what terrorist Iran has already done to the United States. I'm a veteran. I've been in 2 wars. I've been in 2. So this lady has no clue what she's talking about when it comes to American national security, when it comes to the Constitution of America, or when it comes to the power of the President of the United States. The President does have powers to use the military without going to Congress if the threat is imminent. You hear that? He does have power. The president can't wait for Congress to sit around when he knows there's imminent threat that could hurt the people of the United States. The Constitution dictates that the president has power to act immediately if there's imminent threat without going to Congress and announcing a war. That's already been done. That's been done by several presidents. Barack Obama did the same thing. Barack Obama neutralized 2 leaders. He, with cruise missiles. With cruise missiles. You're not sending troops into actual military troops into another country to invade them by launching cruise missiles and these 30,000-pound bombs that they dropped on terrorist Iran's nuclear hidden power plants that were actually on the verge of converting uranium at 60% into nuclear weapons. They were almost there, people. They were almost there to having nuclear weapons. This is why Trump had to act. And he acted within the boundaries of Congress by not sending troops in. But he could use cruise missiles. He could use these 30,000 pound bombs that he used. So this dysfunctional lady just doesn't like Trump. You have people, unfortunately, in this country who rather see Americans perish than actually see Trump actually succeed in protecting America. And that's crazy to me. That's crazy. This dysfunctional woman said, oh yeah, I know that Iran is a terrorist, is the biggest terrorist in the world. I know that Iran has launched terrorist attacks on Marines and actually killed off some of my Marines before. If you look in history, what Iran has done. But we can't do nothing. We can't protect ourselves as Americans. President Trump can't protect us as a president. This lady is dysfunctional. So I want you guys to hear that. That's my radio podcast as I run to do my early morning errands and get back in before the heat gets real crazy. Why it's nice and quiet when people are at work. And that's my radio podcast today about what's going on with the Middle East thing. And as you look at my video, you see I show the gas price, how gas is going to the roof now because what Iran is doing. And I love that I bought this EV I'm in. I bought this EV 2 years now. I have not paid for any gas. I'm saving tons of money on not buying gas. This car does not have an engine. There's no maintenance. Very little maintenance, just the brakes and the AC when the Freon runs out or whatever, and the window washing stuff. I mean, driving an EV has saved me tons, I mean thousands of dollars. Thousands, people. There's no inspections because EVs don't need inspection. They have no engine. Gas is going way up. And this is one of the reasons why I bought an EV car. Because I'm all into DIY. I'm all into saving money. And this is why I bought it. I don't pay for no gas. I could charge this thing off my larger solar power DIY generators. Plug it right up. So it's what's going on right now with that terrorist Iran. It needed to happen. I think what Trump did was a very good choice. Good job, Trump. This guy, this terrorist, who are using his own people to cause problems around the world, was almost there to making nuclear weapons. They have enough uranium. They've already processed it up to the 60% grade for nuclear weapons, and they were almost there. So that's my Aaron podcast for today. You guys stay safe. Grow your own food, DIY your own things that you can DIY on instead of just running out here being cheap and wasting the money. That's what I'm on. For my small food forest with my aquaponics system, making my own bell siphons now. I'm happy. I'm saving tons of money by making my own bell siphons. And y'all have a nice Monday. Stay safe.